I wasn't supposed to hear any of it. The grease-stained jumpsuit they planned to force on me. The fake will leaving me Grandpa's sacred rags. The scripted lines Lucas rehearsed about kids who fail the Quinn legacy. And then the real punch, Sienna laughing that they'd film my reaction for TikTok because public humiliation performs better during the holidays. Their voices drifted through the half-open dining room door like a well-practiced routine, each word slicing deeper than the last. What I didn't know yet was that their little performance wasn't the only secret in that house, and what they never expected was what I'd already set in motion. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family, because betrayal feels different when it comes from people who share your last name. Stay with me. What happened next didn't just shift the room that night. It shifted everything I thought I knew about loyalty, blood, and silence. I didn't grow up thinking my family disliked me. That realization came slowly, the way rust creeps into a frame, quiet, colorless at first, until one day, the metal groans under your hand. From the outside, the Quinn house was picture perfect. A lawn trimmed so neatly you could have aligned a ruler on it, lights always coordinated, windows glowing warm at night. But warmth is easy to fake when everyone keeps their distance. One of my earliest memories is sitting at the dinner table, my toes barely brushing the floor, watching Mom ladle potatoes onto Lucas's plate like she was feeding royalty. Perfect scoop, extra gravy napkin tucked at his elbow. When the bowl reached me, it was nearly empty. She scraped the sides, set it down without looking, and moved on before I opened my mouth. It shouldn't have mattered. But kids know. They always know. At 11, I won a small science fair at school. Nothing extraordinary, but the first thing I'd ever built entirely with my hands. A tiny go-kart made from scrap parts, the paint still smelling sweet and chemical. I held the medal the whole ride home. But as soon as we pulled into the driveway, Dad spotted Lucas dribbling a basketball. He made varsity, Dad said, bolting out of the car like he'd been waiting for that moment all week. Mom snapped photos of Lucas posing in the yard. My medal stayed in my pocket, warm from my palm, unseen. My grandpa was the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't a background character in my own home. He let me sit with him in his garage, the air thick with the smell of cold metal and gasoline. He'd lift the hood of his '68 Mustang and talk like engines were living things. Machines tell the truth, he said once. People don't, not always. I didn't fully understand him then. I do now. He died when I was 15. After the funeral, I overheard Mom telling a woman from church, maybe she'll stop smelling like garages now. It wasn't cruel on the surface. But something in her tone made my fingers curl tight. At 17, I stood in the shattered remains of Mom's prized crystal vase, a vase Lucas knocked over but didn't bother to claim. I still remember Dad walking in, taking one look and saying my name like a verdict. I didn't. Mom didn't let me finish. We'll talk later. But we never talked. They just punished me. I learned something important that day, and my family guilt wasn't assigned, it was convenient. The night I told them I wanted to study automotive engineering, the kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and roasted chicken. I remember the click of the spoon slipping from Dad's hand, Lucas's grin spreading slow, and Sienna letting out a half-suppressed laugh. You want to fix cars? Mom asked, blinking like the words didn't compute. I nodded, hands still marked with faint smudges from Grandpa's Mustang. That's not what our family does, Dad said. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to apologize. I didn't. I also didn't know that moment was drawing the first quiet line between me and the people who raised me, one that would only deepen with time. I moved out at 21, dragging a frayed duffel bag down the driveway, while Mom stood on the porch pretending to adjust a wreath that didn't need adjusting. She didn't ask where I was going, didn't ask if I needed anything. Dad only shouted, "Don't come crawling back," when that hobby collapses, as if my life was already a failed project in his mind. My first apartment was a cramped room above a laundromat. The whole place vibrated whenever someone washed blankets, and the air always smelled like detergent and damp cotton. Still, it was mine. For the first time, silence didn't feel like judgment. It just felt quiet. I worked 2 jobs until I saved enough to open Quinn Auto Works. The sign was crooked. On the first day, the concrete cracked, the bay doors squeaked. But when I turned the key and the lights flickered awake, something inside me settled. Engines didn't care whose daughter I was. They only cared if I listened. During that first year, Mom texted asking if I could send a bit of money because Sienna needed textbooks. I didn't question it. I just transferred what I could. Later that month, she posted pictures from Palm Springs, cocktails, poolside lounges, hashtags about self-care. I recognized the sunglasses. I'd paid for them. I didn't confront her. Not then. But a small place inside me closed like a door clicking shut. Still, I tried to show up. Holidays, birthdays, church events. I kept hoping things might shift even an inch, but every gathering reminded me exactly where I stood. One Christmas, Lucas unwrapped a designer watch, Sienna screamed over a luxury bag, Dad held up a monogrammed briefcase, like a trophy. Mom handed me a lavender candle. She smiled like she'd given me something meaningful. Maybe she thought the scent would cover what she called your constant garage smell. The worst cuts weren't dramatic, they were quiet. Passing Lucas in the hallway and hearing him mutter, "You'd look more respectable behind a desk." Walking into the living room during one of Sienna's live streams and watching her wrinkle her nose at the camera. "Sorry guys," she laughed. "My sister just got home." That explains the aroma. Hearts and laughing emojis filled the screen. I stepped out of frame before anyone noticed my face. 2 years before the Christmas incident, I stumbled onto a signature in a stack of routine business papers, one that looked like mine but wasn't. Ava helped me dig through everything. We found tax adjustments documents tied to Quinn Interiors all linked to my LLC. Dad had used my name, my business, my identity. When I confronted him, he didn't even lift his eyes fully from his laptop. "It's just paperwork, Harper. Don't start drama." Drama. That was always the word he used when I tried to stand up for myself. I left before I said something irreversible. But the anger didn't fade. It changed shape. It sharpened. Even then, a tired part of me still wanted to believe things could be repaired. That blood meant something. That family wasn't supposed to feel like a wound you kept pressing on just to see if it still hurt. I didn't know it then, but all those cuts, the forgotten medals, the stolen credit, the jokes, the indifference, the forged signature were lining up into a perfect pattern. A fuse running quietly toward the moment everything would ignite. The moment I'd stand behind a half-open door and finally hear the truth spoken out loud. The weeks before Christmas always turned the Quinn house into a showroom version of itself, perfect from a distance, brittle up close. I felt that brittleness the moment I stepped inside for Sienna's so-called pre-holiday content day. The air smelled like cinnamon candles layered over something colder, something I recognized too well. Sienna greeted me with her phone already raised, ring light clipped to the banister like a glowing target. "Oh, look," she said to her livestream audience. "Harper's here. Hide your motor oil, everyone." Laughing emojis filled her screen before I even reached the bottom step. "Cut it out, Sienna," I muttered. She flipped her hair. "Relax. Humor performs better than honesty." In the kitchen, Mom hovered over cheese boards with the focus of a surgeon. "You could have texted before coming," she said, eyes fixed on a cracker she was adjusting. "I like to prepare." "For what? For guests." The pause told the real story. I wasn't one. Dad entered still on a Bluetooth call, stocks, deliveries, projections, but he ended it the second he saw Lucas behind me. "There he is," he said, clapping Lucas on the shoulder, pride radiating off him like heat lamps. Then he glanced at me, not disapproving, just uninterested. Somehow that was worse. That night ended with Sienna throwing a glitter-filled stocking into my open truck bed. "It's Christmas." "It's funny," she insisted, giggling. I spent 20 minutes picking glitter out of my wrenches. Glitter clung to everything like the Quinns always did in ways you couldn't shake off no matter how much you tried. A week later, I let myself get guilt-tripped into a family brunch at Quinn Interiors. The showroom gleamed under polished lights, every piece arranged like it feared being touched. I walked in wearing my usual leather jacket and felt the room push against me, subtle but unmistakable, too rough, too real, too me. A sales associate approached, a stiff smile in place. "Employees enter through the back." I stared at her. "I don't work here." Before she could apologize, Dad appeared. "It's fine, Claire. She's family." The hesitation stretched like a hairline crack widening in a mirror. Lucas laughed under his breath. Not loud enough to call out, just loud enough for me to hear. During brunch, Mom kept adjusting my shoulders like I was a crooked picture frame. "Sit up straight. You look tired. Try to smile." "I didn't come here for a photo shoot," I said. "This is a family space," she whispered sharply. "And you're not helping." The last part hit harder than she expected. Maybe harder than she meant. Maybe exactly as hard as she meant. Dad added, "Appearance matters in business, Harper. You should take notes." I looked around at the curated perfection, the staged warmth, the forced smiles. "I don't run a showroom," I said. "I fix things." "Some things," Sienna whispered, eyes glued to her phone. Her tone made it clear she didn't mean engines. After eating, I slipped away into the office hallway just to breathe without being curated. That's when I saw it, a stack of unopened envelopes addressed to Quinn Holdings LLC. My LLC, my name, my handwriting nowhere on them. A cold ripple went through me. Why was my business receiving mail here? I didn't open anything. I just snapped a photo and slid the envelopes back exactly where I'd found them. A knot tightened under my ribs. This wasn't favoritism anymore. It was something else, something that carried weight. At Sunday service 2 days later, the Quinn family sat in the front row, glowing under warm lights, like a display no one was allowed to touch. I sat 2 rows back, far enough to feel human again. Pastor Mitchell spoke about humility. The irony wasn't lost on anyone except the people who needed it most. After service, Mom cornered me near the coffee station. "We want you in the Christmas program," she said brightly. "What for?" She smiled too quickly. "Oh, we have something planned." Her tone had the same polished shine as the showroom. Smooth, surface only, empty. Something shifted in my chest. A warning. A hum under the ribs, but I pushed it down. I shouldn't have. 2 nights after that conversation at church, I drove to the Quinn house again, this time because Dad texted, "Drop off the wrench set you borrowed." I hadn't borrowed anything, but arguing with him always led nowhere, so I went. Maybe some part of me still hoped the atmosphere would be different. Softer. Less calculated. It wasn't. The house glowed from the outside, warm windows, gold lights, perfectly staged lanterns along the walkway. But as soon as I stepped onto the porch, the laughter inside hit me like cold water. Sharp. Familiar. Wrong. I pushed the door open quietly. I wasn't trying to sneak in, I just didn't want to interrupt whatever was happening. But a few steps down the hallway, I heard my name. Not in conversation. In rehearsal. "Harper won't question it," Lucas said, his voice light, casual. "She never does." I froze. My fingers tightened around the handle of the wrench case. Through the half-open dining room door, I saw shadows moving, papers rustling, chairs scraping. My family wasn't talking, they were timing. Practicing. Mom's voice floated out, bright but laced with something cold. "The jumpsuit needs to look authentic. Add more stains on the front." Laughter followed. Not cruel on the surface, cruel underneath, the kind that didn't need volume to hurt. Then Sienna's voice chimed in, upbeat and poisonous. "And when she walks in, I'll have my phone ready. TikTok loves raw reactions. Christmas numbers are great for engagement." She said engagement the way a surgeon might say incision. Dad added, "Make sure the fake will comes after the joke. Comedic pacing matters. Fake will. Jumpsuit. TikTok." It hit me in pieces like shards from a cracked mirror, and each piece cut deeper than the last. Lucas cleared his throat and read from a page, voice theatrical. "And this is what happens to children who fail the Quinn legacy." Everyone laughed, except me. I stood in the hallway, invisible and burning. For a moment I couldn't move. I just listened, to the lines, to the laughter, to the confidence in their voices. This wasn't an impulsive family joke. It was a performance they'd crafted together, a tradition of cruelty dressed up as holiday cheer. The gift I'd brought slipped in my grip, the wrapping paper bending under the pressure of my hand. Mom spoke again. "She'll be grateful we included her in something. She always is." Dad hummed. "She'll take it. She always takes it." And Sienna finished it off with, "If she cries, we go viral." Something inside me tilted. Not snapped. Tilted like a gear finally shifting into its correct position after years of grinding wrong. I stepped back slowly, keeping my boots from making noise against the polished hallway floor. I didn't want them to stop. I wanted them to finish. I wanted to hear every word they felt comfortable saying when they thought I wasn't there. When I reached the front door, the cold night air rushed into my lungs so sharply it almost hurt. I set the wrapped gift on the porch bench carefully, gently, like saying goodbye to something I couldn't carry anymore. I walked to my truck in silence. Not the kind they forced on me. A different kind. One that felt steady, intentional, heavy with understanding. Driving away, the city lights blurred through the windshield. For once, I didn't wipe them away. They made the world look softer, even though nothing inside me felt soft. My phone buzzed, once Mom's name lighting up the screen. I didn't answer. Another buzz. This time from the family group chat. I ignored that too. By the time I reached the empty stretch of highway leading home, something had settled in me. A shape. A decision. A clarity I'd been avoiding for years. They hadn't just hurt me. They had rehearsed it. And they were about to learn the difference between the version of me they believed they controlled and the version they had just created. By Christmas Eve, Austin felt like a city holding its breath. The wind had that sharp metallic cold that cuts through gloves, and the sky hung low as if waiting for something to shatter. I drove with no destination, headlights carving through the dark like blades, until I ended up at a dim 24/7 gas station on the edge of town, a place quiet enough for the truth to finally settle. Its neon sign flickered weakly, buzzing in a rhythm that matched the pulse in my throat. I pulled into a corner spot, killed the engine, and let the silence land. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sudden collapse of all the years I'd spent swallowing things that weren't mine to carry. I pulled out the microfiber cloth from my jacket pocket. The faint smell of motor oil rose instantly. Once that smell embarrassed me. Tonight it steadied me like a hand on the shoulder. I called Ava. She answered immediately. "Talk to me." "They rehearsed a skit to humiliate me," I said. "A fake will. A filthy jumpsuit. TikTok. The whole thing." Silence. Not disbelief, calculating anger. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. "Yeah." "Open your lease folder." I did. Under the cold glow of the dashboard, the truth sharpened. 5 months of missed payments from Quinn Interiors. Multiple ignored notices. A renewal clause Dad pretended didn't exist. And deeper than that, documents Dad filed years ago using my LLC like a shield, forging signatures that should have cost him everything. Ava's voice cut through. "Harper, this isn't family conflict. This is legal." I know. And you're the landlord. I know. For the first time in years, the imbalance between us flipped. We worked in quiet precision. I reviewed overdue statements, drafted a notice of default, updated the market rate rent, prepared the non-renewal, and attached the final piece. A request for vacate, plus a USB containing proof of Dad's earlier misuse of my LLC evidence Ava and I had kept not knowing we'd need it. By the time the packet was complete, my hands were steady. I submitted everything to a courier with rush priority. The confirmation popped up, delivery scheduled 6:47 p.m., St. Augustine Church. Perfect. Across town, the Quinns were already glowing in their curated holiday world. Relatives arriving, choir kids warming their voices, Sienna live streaming, Mom adjusting centerpieces with her well-practiced smile, Dad rehearsing his lines, Lucas straightening his tie in a mirror. They thought they were minutes away from humiliating me. Instead, they were minutes away from the truth. At exactly 6:47, the church doors opened, and the courier stepped inside, white envelopes in hand, crisp and official. For Elaine Quinn, he announced. I wasn't there, but I could picture it, Mom's face tightening as she tore the first envelope, confusion creasing into alarm. Dad's hand shaking as he grabbed the papers. The room falling silent as Pastor Mitchell read aloud by accident, notice of default. Landlord Harper Quinn. Everything stopped. Sienna's livestream wobbled as her expression cracked on camera. Lucas cursed under his breath. Mom sagged into a chair. Dad flipped wildly through pages until the final one slid out. Request for vacate in 30 days, attached evidence of financial misuse. The Christmas skit died right there in their hands. Miles away in my truck, the delivery confirmation blinked on my phone. The neon light from the gas station cast a faint shadow across my reflection, one I didn't fully recognize yet. Stronger, sharper, unapologetic. I didn't smile, but something in my eyes shifted. For the first time in my life, the Quinns felt the consequences of writing me out of their story. The morning after Christmas felt nothing like the holiday mornings I grew up with. No forced cheer, no clinking silverware, no curated perfection. Just quiet. Real quiet. The kind that settles into your bones and asks what comes next instead of telling you who to be. Snow had piled up outside the Wyoming cabin overnight, smoothing the world into a blank sheet of white. Every breath I took rose in a pale cloud, dissolving into the stillness. Inside, Ava was humming in the kitchen, stirring something warm on the stove. Her presence didn't demand anything. It simply existed. I didn't realize how rare that feeling was until I finally felt it. My phone buzzed once. An email from Dad. Not Harper. Not "we need to talk." Just a dry subject line. Lease terms clarification. I opened it. His tone was all business: payment schedules, future communication protocols, operational adjustments for Quinn Interiors. No apology, no recognition. But for the first time in my life, he wrote to me like someone he had to answer to. I typed a short reply. Professional, firm. All communication through Quinn Holdings from now on. No exceptions. A second email arrived minutes later from Mom. Longer than Dad's, but not softer. This isn't who you are. You're hurting the family. We can fix this if you come home. Home. A word she only applied when she was losing control. I didn't respond. Instead, I stepped outside, letting the cold sting my cheeks awake. The snow creaked under my boots, crisp and untouched. For a moment, I just stood there, watching my breath fade like smoke. My hands, still marked with faint oil lines, felt steady, certain. They always believed I'd stay in the role they wrote for me, the quiet daughter, the predictable disappointment, the punchline. They rehearsed my humiliation because they thought they owned the script. They were wrong. The documents they received on Christmas Eve were only the first chapter. A warning. A line drawn in fresh snow. What they hadn't realized yet was simple: I didn't burn bridges. I built exits. And I wasn't finished walking through them. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Stories like this don't happen overnight. They build slowly, layer by layer, until the day you finally stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's version of you. And if any part of my story echoed something you've lived, stay close. This chapter may be done, but I'm not finished. The Quinns still haven't faced everything they've buried, and what happened on Christmas Eve was only the beginning. Subscribe, stay here with me, because the story isn't over yet.